Yeah, so it's a pleasure to be here again before your lunch, like yesterday. So we have Ganesh, who is going to first share a few opening remarks about 20, 25 minutes to half an hour, and share a little bit about BharatGen. Ganesh is a professor at IIT Bombay in the computer science department. He did his BTech and his PhD from IIT Bombay, and is very committed to AI. He's been working on it for many years, and now we'll share a little bit about this new exciting BharatGen. Yes, wonderful. So all yours, Ganesh. There should you can use either the you prefer choice. Hello. Yeah.
Thanks for the generous intro. BharatGen was envisaged uh, in 2023 as a consortium effort across not only multiple academic institutions but also industry. We got started thanks to obviously the Ministry of Education, which gave us the freedom to explore, and then the Department of Science and Technology, Professor Abhay Kardikar in particular, trusted us, a consortium of 7 academic institutions initially, go ahead, try and build India's foundational models from scratch. It took us some time in terms of getting the organization up and running. We're very glad that thanks to DST and then subsequently thanks to the India AI mission for helping us with the largest tranche of their uh, foundational model funds. We have an organization up and running since a year. Rishi Bal is our CEO. He spoke yesterday. And Manish Singh is our VPML. And we have many people who joined us. Kaustav Phanse was a faculty at Virginia Tech, and he was also at Arista. He's joined as our Chief Product Officer. We also have excellent faculty across different IIT Hyderabad, Triple IT Hyderabad, IIT Madras. We have Professor Kamakoti backing us. We have from IIT Kanpur, IIT Kharagpur now, Triple IT Hyderabad, Triple IT Delhi. We also have IIM Indore. They're doing a fabulous job. IIM Indore is doing a fabulous job in visiting many of the tier 2 cities, the libraries in the country, and actually sourcing data, creating dialogues, because a lot of this is about giving a vision and also the confidence that we can co-create based on data sharing, right? And help challenge ourselves into what we could do with the data, but also help make good sense of the data, for example, by excellent indexing. Um, the other part is we've been publishing books, we've been publishing papers together. The whole work is routed to the Section 8 company. The Section 8 company is completely owned by the government of India. Anchored at IIT Bombay with the director at IIT Bombay as its chairperson. It's a very unique model. I think I am taking some time to talk about this because we have met LLMJP, the Japanese counterpart. We have met several foundational model building initiatives in the global south. And we do stand out very unique. I mean, none of them have such a big consortium. Though LLMJP does have a couple of consortium members, none of them have active faculty involved to the extent that we have. And of course, we also take inspiration from China. They had this 1,000 Scholars Return program. They started a decade back, right? The seeds of all that we see today with DeepSeek and the mushrooming of Gwen, etc. Again, the seeds were sown a decade back. Better late than never. We need to do this, and we need to do this frugally. The other important part is our academia and the researchers. They work very close together. So while we have 100 plus students and 60 plus full-time engineers, we're trying to make sure that they are non-separable. Okay, so this ecosystem has 4 major components, and I liken this to the growth of a tree, where the roots are the data and knowledge, leading to foundational model building with their recipes and benchmarks from the first bite. So imagine DeepSeek being built. We've been building models like that, obviously as digital public goods for India, but the recipes are more than just what gets open sourced. And these recipes and benchmarks go together, which means you evolve new benchmarks to ensure that the models are grounded in Indian context. um, the benchmarks also help you improve the recipes themselves, right? So a classic example was our vision language model, document vision language model. We were doing very well on some of the public benchmarks, but we became our own adversaries. We said, can we create benchmarks that challenge our current performance? And in fact, we did take a slight beating when we created our own benchmark, right? Because we found existing benchmarks were actually too easily giving away, for example, question answering over documents with extremely simple objective questions. So our questions became a lot more subjective, and that certainly helped us also push the frontiers of our model research. So that takes me to the third, which is research, optimization, algorithms, right? For those who have been into even using these models for inference, forget about building them from scratch. You would have seen that they are filled with inefficiencies, right? One of my classic examples is, right, when we have food, right? We have breakfast. You'll find that there's diminishing returns. The fifth item that you eat is not going to give you as much satisfaction as the first item that you eat. Data also has diminishing returns. So, how do you pick data such that it is effective? Obviously, that will also lead to good efficiency. So, that's research, optimization, algorithms. I'll give more flavors of how we do that. And then finally, that feeds back into good collaborations. If you look at how China has, again, made a lot of progress, it's by co-design. People who understand architecture come together with those who understand math and algorithms, and that's how new algorithms come out. Are very effective in practice. So can we do that not only with the teams we have here, but also with all of you, right? That's been leading to partnerships, deployments. I myself have been very fortunate. I did my bachelor's at IIT Bombay, and post that I was to go to CMU for a PhD. I decided to stay back at ITB, and because of that, I also found that uh, I got grounded in the Indian ecosystem, in the Indian, uh, basically research partnerships. One of the strongest learnings I had was during my IBM research stint. So, interestingly, at IBM Research, we wanted to find an alternative to uh, the over-promise, over-hype that ML was providing through statistical models. This was in the 2005, 2006 period. So we got very inspired by what database provided, right? So databases give you, everyone uses databases, right? You fire structured query language, SQL queries, and what you get as output results, you are able to trace back because there's provenance, right? The data provenance, result provenance. You have an execution plan. So we got inspired by SQL. We said, why can't we have an annotator query language? If you have to do information extraction from emails, can we actually write SQL-like queries? We actually designed our own programming language called annotator query language, a declarative language, and resulted in lots of research. But what is interesting is that this was possible because the research team, worked very closely with engineers. So we continue to do that even at BharatGen. We continue working with companies like IBM, obviously, but also we work extensively with the Indian ecosystem. So let me take you through some examples. For some reason, it's stuck. That direction? It isn't moving. Yeah. Somebody could move it. Yeah, thanks. So now coming, just the first pillar, a little more of double clicking. So diversity as resilience, right? So data diversity across 22 Indian languages, 22 plus Indian languages, speech, text, and document, which are all inclusive. The um, opportunities are galore. Why? Not just because like local cultural context, etc. It's just because a lot of the data is actually logged into legacy systems, and here's an opportunity we have to engage in dialogues to unlock its use. It takes a lot of discussion. I give credit to my colleagues at IIT, IIM Indore for engaging in such dialogue, but there are many others. Like we have recently been talking to Professor Sandeep Kumar from IIT Delhi. He's done a fabulous job And again, we're partnering with them on working with tribal data. So they have this initiative called Adivani. A lot of it requires discussion, dialogue, right? To make sure that not only there's co-design, but you're also not fitting a square peg in a round hole. You're actually trying and solving problems that are relevant. Um, One of the key problems here is, just helping people understanding the difference between digitization and digitalization. What does it really take to also bring provenance into the way the data is ingested? We, for example, work with 5 speech vendors. Very interesting journey. We got 13,000 hours of speech data, pin code level speech data. Of course, a lot of it is also annotated. Now, one challenge was to ensure that these speech vendors are not repurposing the same speech data. Anand's speech being tagged as Ganesh, right? Now, it may happen, uh, inadvertently, but how do you bring ML? How do you bring agentic solutions to ensure that there is not only due diligence done on at the syntactic level, right? But the metadata is also sufficiently rich. Syntactic, I mean the sampling rate, for example, 8 kilohertz as against 16 kilohertz. But also you need to ensure that the metadata is there. You have the right geotagged information for each speech input that you get. And because we work closely with them, we are also able to empower them. Some of them are really homegrown Indian companies. We were able to help them do this capacity building into understanding how ML can be used for better data gathering, for better data curation, right? So this is one area. I keep using the word provenance because the more you can build expandability into the data by design, the more you can actually trace back. In our discussion with the Honorable PM on 8th Jan, one of the appeals he kept making is, can you bring attribution at the core level, right? I mean, we're talking about ethics, fairness, etc. But unfortunately, many people who are contributing to the data have no presence at all, right? No footprint in this entire AI ecosystem. How can we bring that? I'm not suggesting by any means that we have answers to those questions, but we are on that journey, and that's where even partnerships at the level of data matter a lot, right? In capacity building, we also work closely with Gyan Bharatam, India's big initiative at uncovering a lot of the traditional texts. We built provenance systems for OCR, right? Optical character recognition, not just ingesting the data, but giving them the confidence that the right the output has been mapped correctly to the input. More so even for translation, when you have source, target, provenance, for example, through bounding boxes on the source documents. This brings me to the second pillar, which is the foundational models. Now, specifically, our series of text foundational models, right? What are text foundational models? Basically, you have a series of or sequence of words, and you're trying to do self supervision, right? I mean, imagine masking a part of this room, and I'm trying to reconstruct that part based on context in the remainder. You could do that with text, you could do that with speech. Now, you could overlay some more interesting semantics. You could, instead of doing just the next word prediction, you could do a next sentence prediction. You could get into next chunk prediction, right? So you can have a hierarchy, multiple levels of granularity of what we call self supervision. You could do that for text. You could do that for speech. As I speak, I can create speech tokens and mask them out. But I can also intersperse between text and speech. And what is often missing today is, right? Unfortunately, when we keep wearing the consumer hat, we don't understand what is really going behind building these models. And the fact that there may be 10 different ways of achieving what is currently being achieved, or there could be ways by which we could do even better, more frugally. So the recipes are very important. As a recipes, you viewing these foundational models as glass boxes, as against black boxes, right? So our series of text foundational models ranging up to now 17 billion parameters. Earlier there were only 7 billion parameters. Now 17 billion parameters, right? 22 Indian languages, which will be coming out. So these have been built from scratch. We have text to speech models, which are basically under the umbrella of Suktam, right? Suktam, what is spoken. Shrutam is our um, basically suite of speech to text models. And as I said, some of these speech to text models also have text overlaid on the speech for better context. And I'll give you some examples. The third pillar, right? What these foundational models, as I said, work very closely with this research. Now, why do I bring the foundational models before research? There's a lot of research we keep doing anyways. We publish papers. But when it comes to models of scale, the research is of a different league altogether, right? Otherwise, as I said, it might just be fitting a square peg in a round hole. If you take the research pertaining to small models, 500 million parameter model, and try and extrapolate it to billion parameter model, it doesn't work that well. Nothing works. I mean, nothing extrapolates that well. So that's the reason this umbilical cord is very important between foundational models and the associated research. Um, I'll give more examples. I give the example of have this diminishing returns, right? Or now let me take another analogy. Lighting up this room. Do we really need all the bulbs in this room to be lit up? Perhaps not. You need to look at areas that are well occupied and look at the audience that are tuned in versus tuned out, right? Therefore you could look at feature based, coverage based, diversity based subset selection or selection of points. Imagine doing this at the level of data. So we in fact brought out an open source platform called Decile, 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 which expands as data efficient learning. So how can you do data efficient learning? That feeds back into foundational model building. So do look at our website. We've been building this for over a decade. Open source, literature, publications, as well as code. And as I said, this naturally feeds back into the startups and partnerships and deployments. Um, we work with several state governments. I was quite impressed that we had very wonderful conversation with the Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister just 3 days back. Right, the fact he understands the only way to sustain all of this is when we co-design, and we'll need by co-design also we mean that there's a bit of education that needs to happen both ways. I often tell these people that I need my capacity building to happen so that I can speak in a way that the audience understands, right? So it's both ways. I think that even the willingness to go that uh, take that 2 steps makes a big difference to making these dialogues a lot more productive. In fact, very proud that we brought out 2 books. One of these books, Informatics and AI for Healthcare, is a book that I and my colleague Dr. Kshitij Jadhav co-authored. Dr. Kshitij is with the AI Centers of Excellence. Um, he is also faculty at IIT Bombay. He has an MBBS. He's basically a complete medical history. He has, of course, also done a PhD. So when we wrote this book together, literally every concept in ML, every systems informatics related concept, we mapped it to healthcare. So this is a very good example. I mean, the transformers, the transformers are all largely based on attention models, right? How you attend across from the decoder to the encoder. Every example we run or we construct using healthcare, right? Examples from the healthcare domain. This is the kind of empathy I think we require everywhere. So to do very effective co-design, of course, we also work with Jal Jeevan Mission, water and sanitation, hospitals such as Amrita. So obviously, we want to expand, right, the tribe of collaboration. But to do that, we need to augment our leadership significantly. As I was telling Anand, we look forward to people maybe with a decade and a half experience in the industry who also appreciate the need for such research to come and join BharatGen. Um, so this is that overall ecosystem. I'm going to give you some more flavor, little bit videos to help you relate to this better. Uh, so while we build foundational models from scratch, we also build domain-specific models. For example, agriculture, healthcare. We in fact brought out the first model for Ayurveda. For agriculture, we have something called Agri Param. Param is our, as I said, a suite of text foundational models. For governance, for legal, finance, and so on. Finance Param, again, a model. Now, with every model, we also release its benchmarks. Um, One of the examples was agriculture, Krishi, which resulted in the building of a Krishi Sati, an app which is actually operational out of WhatsApp. Um, Here's a small glimpse. Can the audio go up? Can you please raise the volume?
तो स्टोरेज में ज़्यादा दिक्कत आती है, तो स्टोरेज कैसा करना चाहिए?
क्या आप बता सकते हैं कि आपके प्याज की किस्म कौन सी है और आपने फसल कब काटी थी? प्याज को ठंडी और हवादार जगह में रखें जहां तापमान 25 से 30 डिग्री सेल्सियस और नमी 65 से 70% के बीच हो।
So what we did here was integrated text, speech, vision, document vision, all of them in under one umbrella. Work closely with the Indian Council for Agriculture Research. Now we are also working closely with the Andhra Pradesh government. I mean, a lot of it is going to be state level. So we get support from the center. We have completely government kind of supported, currently funded by the India Mission and DST. But a lot of data is actually coming from ministries. And now, I mean, agriculture is very hard to crack overall, right? Because everyone wants everything for free. But that's the reason you saw towards the end, there's also integration with marketplace. None of this is possible without the co-design principle. Now, this is just one example, but a text model, for example, is for very is for very high fidelity domain specific interaction. Here are examples in other Indian languages for other domains. So Param is our text model.
சரி, இந்த சிக்கலான கால்குலஸ் சிக்கலை தீர்ப்போம். முதலில் சார்பின் வகைக்கெழுவை கண்டுபிடிக்க வேண்டும்.
Steps in a calculus based derivation in Tamil. This is for legal drafting. This is work we are doing with the government of Maharashtra. Making sense of GRs. Finance planning. I think this was to just give you a glimpse of what is possible. Now I'm going to talk about very interesting aspects of research, and this is these three graphs, dependency graphs, right, pertain to the same sentence. I'm going to read that sentence slowly. कोलकाता स्थित काली माँ का प्रसिद्ध मंदिर बहुत ही भव्य है. Okay, this sentence is reasonably complex sentence. As against just Ram ne aam khaya, right? I could do that for the simple sentence as well. But for this complex sentence, you'll see the rendering in Tamil, Bengali, and Hindi, right? And what you find here is if you have the right, I mean, what we call as a Paninian lens, it's inspired by Panini, by Ashtadhyayi, but it is in no way restricted, right? Every literature we have is just a catalyst to make what matters happen, right? So what matters is a canonical representation for these languages. And here you find that the graphs look so similar. I mean, they look exactly the same. If you can read in your language, you could render it in your own language. And what's really happening here, right? Why do the graphs, all of you make this observation? The graphs look exactly the same. And Tamil, I mean, I'm a Tamil speaker. The vocabulary probably has changed from the time my father studied in Tamil medium school to today. But the structure still remains the same. And the reason, broadly, very broadly, is that Indian languages are subject, object, verb, right? Whereas English is subject, verb, object. So the more you push English lens for Indian languages, the more you'll have a disruption. Whereas Indian languages, there's a lot more lateral learning that is possible. And in our latest model releases, we see that happening. How do you exploit that? By design, by principle. There's a lot of research to be done, but many principles are written in our book called Samanvay. Samanvay basically stands for an interlingua for Indian languages, but from a computational linguistics perspective, right? So, this book is, of course, from several of our consortium members. I'm also part of it. What I've shown you is just one glimpse of what it means to bring that canonical structure. Is it only for text? No, for speech as well. If you look at speech, there's a lot of phonetic and linguistic similarity. The phonemes, I mean, we used something called a common label set based on the phonetic similarity to build some of our recent models for both text to speech and speech to text empowered by LLMs. And here's a small example. Yeah, oh, the video didn't play. But anyways, I think there are very interesting use cases you'll see coming out soon. One exercise we did, when we build these models, how many of you heard of mixture of experts? Probably heard mixture of experts because of DeepSeek, right? It made them famous. So when we projected from a speech encoder to a text decoder, we used a mixture of experts. And we found that Marathi and Hindi, the patterns look exactly the same, right? From the speech perspective, phonemes perspective. Whereas Telugu derives a lot from Hindi as well as Tamil. That means Telugu does borrow from Hindi, but also borrows from, I mean, there is still some coherence with Tamil. These are all examples, but I think for some reason the video is not playing. So I think this was to basically give you a feel for what all we've been doing in this big space to create what is called the ecosystem for the country. Yeah, I'm very grateful for this opportunity. The long way to go. We'll have very interesting releases during the upcoming India Impact Summit. Look forward to seeing some of you there. Thank you very much.
So let me start by asking you a few questions, and then if we have time, we'll open it to the audience. Maybe we can sit down now. So let me first ask you a very fundamental question as to why is it so important to have our own foundational models, and with ChatGPT, Claude, and everyone else available, Gemini, why should we be investing in building our own? What is the motivation, and why is this important?
Yeah, thanks, Anand. I tried alluding to this a couple of times, but I'll probably bring all of them under one umbrella. Efficiency is certainly a big concern. The way these models are built, the training itself is energy sapping, but the inference is probably out of our syllabus currently. How do you cater to population scale inference models? Unless we understand these models, unless we understand how the workload can also result in better, I wouldn't go to even to the level of ASIC or chip design, but I'm saying even better stacks, better inference model serving engines.
So potentially with your algorithms, one could improve other people's models as well, right? Hopefully, once you publish your results, maybe ChatGPT or Gemini can also use your algorithms to be more efficient. So is that really the only play, or is there something unique about Indian data or any of those things? Can you talk a little bit about how Indian data could get ignored in case we don't do our own?
Thanks. So that was just the first point, efficiency. But I get your message that this was going to benefit everyone. Now, the second important reason is even to solve our own use cases. Right? Let's forget about the fact that we have digital public goods and publications. Even to solve our use cases, when we work with specific departments and governments, the entire discussion on how you translate their observations into models and engineering, that's only possible if you have a sovereign exercise which sees these models as glass boxes. So none of these will fly without co-design. So co-design is only possible when the entity is
so can you
Indian.
share one more thing which may be useful for all of us? So you would build a sovereign model and potentially make it available to people who want to use it. What does it mean for, say, a government department or someone else who can use that model? Where is the starting point, and how do you build on top of it? Can you comment a little bit about how these applications are built? So you had the legal one and others. So a little bit about your base, and then what next?
So typically what happens is we've been putting out our models on Hugging Face, on AI Coach. Companies, entities who are really interested in building, some of them, they try out our benchmarks and come back. Right? That's one way. People reach out to us and say, well, you've got a good starting point, but we would like to take you much ahead. We said, that's great. That's why we put them out in the first place, to let you know that we have the intent to work with you. So that's one mode. And that's the reason we put out on open source, so that we create, it becomes a catalyst for discussion. But the engagement is not just based on the open source. The engagement is based on recipes, that we know what works, what doesn't work. For every one model checkpoint release that we have 1,000 internal checkpoints that did not work as well. And some of them might have worked well in very restricted settings. So we have that information that helps in creating effective solutions. So that is one mode in which we engage. There are others, of course, where we also try and create a sovereign ecosystem, not just us, but there are other entities. I mean, we are not system integrators. So there are people who are system integrators. We don't, certain cases, we don't work with the end user directly, but only through system integrators. So they bring us a lot of the insights.
Yeah, so let me sort of bring it to the audience here in Pune. And Pune has many centers which have, like Bhandarkar Institute and others, which have good quality Indian knowledge and Indian data available in various institutions. So that's one side. The other area, of course, is that there are many domain experts who understand their domain uh, at the best levels across the world. So if these two parties have to work with you in some form or the other, how can those who have good quality data work with you, and what would you do with them? And we may have some here in this room, and the other way around as well. So if someone has a specific, maybe ocean, or pick any application, right? So there is a lot of people in the room who have expertise in those areas. How can they take that for public good, even if we leave it to the public good level? What would be your guidance on how we can work with you?
So thanks. Through our engagement with the Indian knowledge system, the specifically Gyan Bharatam initiative, we got connected to several uh, people and entities who are already committed to making AI reflect the Indian knowledge system.
No, but see, you have not shown logos of Bori or Deccan College or many of the other very Pune specific things, where we actually believe that we have the world's best knowledge.
Yes, yes.
Huh.
So I was coming to that. BharatGen has already been working at a strategic level with Bori and with Deccan College. So these are two places I was to come to that. And we have, in fact, a data team who are specifically engaged only in these discussions. Our offer in general, whether it's Bori, whether it's Deccan College, has always been, we are happy to give our OCR, our LLM post correction on the OCR as services. We'll be more than happy if you can
Yeah, let me be
participate.
more precise or specific here. So if somebody in the group were to offer you saying that, I will help you with that and read the data from Bori or other places, would that be of interest? How would you take that
Absolutely.
on? What would you want us to do? What can the chamber do to help you?
So,
Because of course, this is a mission that is national. All of us, we want to contribute to the success. So
right.
put a more specific ask.
Thank you. So the ask here is, please reach out to us if you're interested in working with us.
It is fine. What can we do?
The sourcing of the sharing of data, with the understanding that you are to benefit from its own digitization. You are to benefit from the ability to search, index, and make sense of all that data.
So let me
just complete this.
Yeah, sure.
And not only that, the ability to also incorporate this data into a complete, what we call state-of-the-art research ecosystem. And for example, if you had some literature on Patanjali Yoga Sutra, which is of course very commonly accessible, what are the current contemporary scientific articles that cite Yoga Sutras, for example, Yama, in the context of what Patanjali talks about, right? Now, this is an ability we have been able to bring. If you happen to be at the India Impact Summit, we have actually created a whole bunch of suite of demos, right from the pronunciation to searchability to navigation through literature. You will have that ability. So it's not just about reaching out, but also for you to realize that you stand to benefit, along with obviously the entire Indian knowledge system ecosystem.
So let me be more kind of specific, and we have some leaders here who can help, and this is why I'm going to push this a little bit further. So here's what I would like to ask you, and see if we can do this. So I believe that in Pune we have good sources of repositories of ancient Indian data of various kinds, and perhaps it may not all be digitized. Some of it may need OCR. Lots of other gaps are there. Do you think that we can work together with you in some form to help you? Do you have the tools and the ability to sort of say, okay, if you have all this data, here are our tools, and we can upload into the, your foundational model, so that the future will have all of that data incorporated? Is there something that we can do specifically with you on that? And would you be interested in coming back and maybe running a 3-day workshop, or getting people together to teach them how to get our data into your system?
Absolutely. If it's now as specific as a workshop, a joint, a partnership, some kind of a joint venture to make this happen, by all means, yes.
So
We would like to make that
yeah,
happen.
so that would be one end. I think we can all help you a lot here. And the other side of it, of course, is that, we have lots of SMEs here who have bright ideas. They are probably using Claude or Gemini or whatever else. Should they stop using that and use BharatGen instead? What would it take to do that? And how
Yes.
ready are you to make that happen?
Yes. So I'll be a little honest. Until this summit, we were building models which were a smaller scale. Now, smaller scale, which means up to 10 billion parameters. The capacity these smaller models have are largely domain specific. Now, with larger models that we are going to release, we are feeling very confident now, extremely confident, that you could actually use our models, partner, and in fact, have that virtuous cycle where the experiences, the data learning will result in models that are way more effective, applications that are way more effective than Claude. It is not just about a nationalistic call, right? That please let it reside in India. Certainly, that is certainly one part of me. But you stand to benefit. I'll just give you one example, right? China, a decade back when I visited there, I was suffocated because I couldn't access Google, YouTube, none of that. But now they're actually reaping the rewards of ensuring that everything is plowed back into the ecosystem in terms of quality, in terms of effective models, in terms of efficient models. So I'm sure we can do that.
So there again, I think we have a very good ecosystem in Pune. And I think we can offer to you a way of people trying out your models to see how they would compare and how that can go on. That would be very nice. The third question I want to ask you, there's a lot of discussion about world models and various other things. Yeah, you guys are a token language-based model at the moment. What do you think is the future of non-language tokens and building out next generation models? And is that something BharatGen would do, or is that something not part of your scope? How do you see those?
Thanks. The non-language models, the concept-based, right, thinking, inferencing, and logical, building the logical DNA into the model. These are areas which we are exploring. Now, the research, the research wing within BharatGen, the consortium partners, unfortunately, that also requires a lot more investment, right? And currently, while we have 1,000 crores from the India mission, 250 crores from initial from Department of Science and Technology, it's just falling significantly short for any of that collaboration. If there is a way the Indian industry or a group of people stand up and say, well, let's also think future, right? AGI is certainly there, but even towards AGI, can we think more abstractly beyond language? I think there is a lot of value there. And at least my experience with using the Paninian lens has shown me that.
Yeah.
But we'll need partnerships.
So, okay, let me get you again to be more specific here. So, if we had investors here who wanted to invest money, how will they get return?
So one thing we've been always encouraged is to have, while we are a Section 8 not-for-profit company, we can have a for-profit spin-off. We could actually have, and that can attract investments. It's been in the discussion. I think our CEO Rishi Bal was also here. So that's certainly there. And we want multiple such spin-offs, not just one. And those can actually, the good thing there will be, all of them will be backed by the BharatGen ecosystem, right? Because It's like setting the national highway, and you can actually have lots of offshoots. And just to also bring why large models matter, like India Emission has tasked us with building 1 trillion parameters, and that's one reason the main BharatGen Section 8 company needs to focus on building those large models.
Correct.
Because, as I said, it's like building the big highway. GPT OSS, which was a 20 billion parameter model from ChatGPT, benefited from its own internal large models. So, unless we do that well, the distillation
Correct.
will cannot be effectively used by other smaller entities. So, while we focus on that, we really want for-profit spin-offs with investments coming.
Yeah, I think we are at the end of time here. It's been beeping at us for some time. Let me thank you very much for coming here. I think it's been a wonderful exposition of what's going on. It makes us all proud that, with your initiatives, we have something that can compete with the best in the world. And thank you for doing what you're doing. Clearly, we are not satisfied with this. We need another session with you on where you show the story of how the team got built, what happened. We're always curious to learn about such things, and also how can we collaborate and partner with you, and how can we use your models to go forward. So all of these three things, I think let's use this as a starting point and follow up. If just one last thing, if one has to reach you or your organization, where should they be looking at? BharatGen.in, or where is your website?
BharatGen.com is website. There is a very clear contact us link there. But that's one way to reach.
Correct.
The other is
So I
also
think that's probably the best one, and I would like to just
there's also a QR code there. In case
there's a
you want
QR code there. Okay, fine. So if you go on the website, you should be able to do it. Maybe just last thing about this big AI summit that you guys are driving, and the Prime Minister is part of it. How clued in are the politicians with what you are doing, and you've been meeting all of them? What is your point on that?
So what is interesting is BharatGen probably we should take credit for creating a whole of government approach. The Honorable Mr. Dr. Jitendra Singh in a Rajya Sabha question answer session for 20 minutes, he talks about BharatGen as India's sovereign initiative. And Mr. Ashwini Vaishnaw talks about it. So I think that's one great thing. We've got multiple ministers together with a common goal. And not just ministers, secretaries. I think they're really backing us. So we are very grateful. I feel the Indian industry should also significantly step up.
What do you want from the industry? Step up meaning what?
So one way, as I said, if industry and BharatGen can come up with this for-profit spin-offs somehow, right? It can be very domain specific. It can actually also be inference based. That's one. The other way is if industry also steps up and says, well, we want to support the research part here. Just the research, deep dive. I mean, deep sea couldn't have happened without solid research. That's another way the industry could step up.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sorry, a third way. I was about to.
Sure, go for it.
A third way is industry adopting sovereign AI. That makes a big difference. I know that industry is impatient, but please let's learn from China. When they adopt their own products, they stand to benefit in the longer run.
Yes, I like your passion and energy. We do have to take a lunch break right now. Thank you very much. I'll hand it back to Prashant.